Hello, fellow yogis. I know this is going to be a little bit of an unusual practice for us today. I'm not used to being videoed doing my yoga practice, but I think for a lot of us it will be hard for us to be together personally, even electronically, and so I wanted to record this video in particular to enable everyone to do some sort of a simple yoga practice that focuses on hands, arms, wrists, things that we're going to be using a lot while we're at our computers working from home. So let's start in a simple seated position where we often do in yoga with crossed legs. So I'm putting my left leg in front. That's because today that's the leg I'd like to have in front. You can feel free to switch back and forth. It's nice sometimes to experience the opposite leg forward from the one that you would normally rely on. I try and switch back and forth from practice to practice. And we're going to start today in simple seated position, just getting in touch with our breath. So I'm going to ask you for a minute or two to directly put your shoulders above your hips and try to pull in the backs of your shoulder muscles near the scapular region. Maybe give your neck just a little bit, because it's probably also a little sore, a little bit of a stretch. Put your hands gently in your lap. That may mean that your hands fall over your knees, either facing down or facing up. Or it may mean that, like me, because you have somewhat shorter hands and arms, your hands are somewhere near your thighs. You can feel free to put them in your lap. For example, with your left hand below your right, just cradling it. And once you get into a comfortable position with a straight spine like this, just take a moment and close your eyes. Without directing your head downward, go ahead and allow your eyes within their sockets to just rest down in the bottom of the sockets as if you were looking at the tip of your nose. And from here, just focus in on your breath, trying not to adjust it or judge it, trying instead merely to just focus on the intake and the outtake of your own breath, however raspy or smooth it may be. Then take a deep breath in. Hold it gently at the top. And then when you're ready, release that deep breath, pushing all of the air out of your chest and your torso. Then open your eyes and allow yourself to again become normal in terms of your breath. Let's take our legs now and switch them so that the opposite leg is in front in simple seated position. And let's work a little bit with our wrists and hands starting from a seated position. So what I'd like to have you do is to take your hands out in front of you at about shoulder height with palms down. Then go ahead and flip your wrists so that palms are up, and take your hands gently while breathing in into a fist, while breathing out into a fist. And while breathing in, opening up and extending your hands. So again, it's a breath in and extended hands. Breath out and clenched hands. Let's do this about 10 times in time with your own breath. Make sure you're keeping your shoulder blades down and in as you do this. It should be a pretty good workout for your arms. You should also feel it in your shoulders, as well as, of course, in your hands. And after your last breath out and your clenched fist, go ahead and shake out your wrists and your arms a little bit. Let's give them a rest for a moment, okay? From here, I'd like you to take your right arm first, and I'm going to mirror you here, so I'm going to be taking my left. And a gentle fist this time. Go ahead and pull your fingers in toward the palm of your hand with your left hand, or your right hand in this particular case for you, with your right hand facing toward the center of your torso. So gently pull your fingers in. Pull your thumb up so that it's facing the ceiling. Take your opposite hand and go ahead and move it to the thumb. And while putting pressure against your hand, go ahead and try and pull back the thumb. So you're actually putting pressure into your fingers as you're pulling your thumb back. And after holding that for a few seconds, go ahead and release. We'll do that 2 more times on this hand. Pulling towards you again while pushing away. And then a 3rd time. And I'm breathing in as I try to do this. Sorry, I'm breathing out as I try to do this. And then I'm breathing in again as I let the thumb move up toward the ceiling, or in my case, the top of my porch, which is where I am now. Let's switch to the opposite hand. Again, taking the hand so that the palm is facing toward the center of your torso. This time your left hand. You're going to gently curl your fingers into a fist. Thumb is facing up toward the ceiling. And you're going to act as though this thumb is trying to press down while at the same time you're pulling back with your fingers. Again, go ahead and hold this for a few seconds each time. And do it about 3 times. Breathing in while pulling back. And then breathing out while you let it release. And then breathing in while pulling back. And breathing out while allowing the thumb to release. Again, let's just articulate our fingers a little bit here, stretch them out a little bit. We're going to move from here onto all fours. So place your knees directly below your hips, your hands directly below your shoulders in a standard sort of tabletop, or what's sometimes called horse pose. From here, we're going to do simple cat-cow, starting first with our hands with fingers spread out in front of us, directly below our shoulders, wrists bent at a right angle. Breathing out and moving up into cat. And then breathing in, and if you'd like, adding the toes into cow. And then breathing out and into cat, and breathing in and into cow. Let's do one more in this position. Out and into cat, and then in and into cow. Move your spine back into a neutral position. And from here, we're just going to change the way our hands are facing. So take your arms and externally rotate them if you can, so that your wrist is now facing forward with both hands. And try a cat-cow in this position. It's going to be a little bit harder. Again, breathing out into cat. And then breathing in into cow. And then out into cat. Moving with your own breath. In into cow. And then last time with the hands in this position. Out into cat. And in into cow. While we're here in a cat-cow position, go ahead and take each of your wrists and bend them so that your palm is facing up and your wrist is completely flexed, putting your wrist right underneath your shoulder. Just do this with one arm at a time so that you don't place all of your weight on the outside of your wrist. But go ahead and just flex the wrist in the opposite direction. Put a little bit of weight on it, just not too much. And then just do that with the other hand. Again, turning so that your wrist is flexed toward the body, palm facing up and underneath your body, with the outside of your wrist taking a little bit, but not too much weight. Once you've done with that stretch, let's move back into a child's pose. Child's pose is always appropriate. You can use it at any time in the practice when you're tired or just would like a break for whatever reason. In child's pose, your spine is facing down towards your heels, so the bottom of your spine facing down towards your heels. We're going to do an extended child's pose because that will help us to focus on our hands. Go ahead and spread your fingers wide on the mat, about shoulders width apart, maybe a little bit wider than that. And then go ahead and allow from this position your head to sink down so that your forehead touches the mat. On a breath in, go ahead and raise your head up. Take your feet and separate them. The toes are together in child's pose. We're going to separate them here. Take your right foot and move it forward between your two front hands. Then go ahead and push up from the left and do the same. And we'll meet in a forward fold position. I'm going to turn toward the camera so that you can see this a little bit more clearly. But in a forward fold, You want to basically allow the top of your body to extend down toward the ground. You're folding at your hip crease, right where your leg meets your torso. And just for a moment, allow your arms to dangle in front of you. You can do as I'm doing and go ahead and put opposite thumbs in the crooks of your elbow to help hold your arms. Then from here, go ahead and push up into a half forward fold where your body's pretty much at right angles, again from the hip crease. And go ahead and take your arms and extend them out over your head. Clasp your hands together and then push the clasp out away from the shoulders. Try to keep your shoulders from hunching up around your ears as you do this. But just go ahead and stretch the outsides of your palms. Then from here, go ahead and release back down into a forward fold. Again, feel free to allow your arms to bend at the elbow, putting a thumb in each elbow crook. And then from here, either stretch your arms out and move up into a mountain pose, or go ahead and do a reverse swan dive with arms out, and then pulling on an in-breath, your arms up overhead. Go ahead and move your hands down into a namaste position, hands at heart. From here, in mountain pose, let's take a moment to just focus on our hands. Typically in mountain pose, your hips are directly above your ankles, your shoulders are directly above your hips, and you have a little bit of, I'll turn sideways for this, a tilt down so that you're pulling up toward the breastbone in the front and down with your tailbone in the back in order to try and keep your hips as straight as possible, and again, directly above your ankles. Shoulders directly above them, and your head, if someone were pulling the tops of your ears up, that's the kind of feeling you want to have out of your head, straight up in the air. Some people also like to think about a string coming out of the top of their head. That's another possibility, okay? So from that kind of a mountain pose, and you can keep your feet straight together on this, or about hips width apart, with the toes facing straight forward. And again, that nice straight sort of position down from the hips if you're going to keep your feet apart on this pose. Take your arms and put them alongside once you've gotten yourself into a stable position. You're standing incredibly straight here. Just appreciate that for a moment. Take a few breaths. Standing very straight and tall with your head erect above your spine, shoulders above hips, hips above ankles. So take just a few breaths here. And go ahead and externally rotate your arms and spread your fingers as wide as you can. Hold them in this position for about 10 seconds. And go ahead and allow your hands to relax. Release your fingers and rotate your wrists just a little bit, okay? Give a little bit more feeling back into your hands. Then go ahead and take your right arm, and again, I'll mirror you here, so I'll use my left, but go ahead and take your right arm out so that your hand, your palm, is facing in front of you as if there were a wall that you were putting your palm on. Then go ahead and take your left hand, your opposite hand, and one finger at a time, just pull back on each of the fingers towards your torso, holding it for a few seconds in each case, while continuing to keep the other fingers erect toward the ceiling. So from the thumb, go ahead to the index finger on the right hand. Try to keep your arm as taut as possible and out straight in front of you. Moving to the middle finger. Then the ring finger. And then finally the pinky. Go ahead and shake out that hand, shake out that wrist. And then we're going to move to the other side. Again, check and make sure that your mountain pose is still good and solid. Take your left hand out and press it in front of that imaginary wall in front of you. And then go ahead and take your right hand, your opposite hand, and pull back at the thumb for a few seconds. Then your pointer finger on the left hand. Then your middle finger. Then the ring finger. And make sure that hand is about shoulder height. You're not bending backwards, standing up tall. And then finally, on the left hand, the pinky. Then go ahead and again, shake out both hands. Maybe take a half forward fold here if you'd like. Then from here, we're going to go back up into a standing position and move into Warrior Two. Okay, the Warrior Two pose involves stepping out to about wrist width if you have your hands up side to side, moving out from each shoulder. We're going to take the left foot and edge it in just slightly, the right foot, and turn it toward the end of the mat. If you can do this, try to keep your hips as flat as possible, your body as flat as possible, as if you were held within two glass panes in a very narrow way, pressing in at the front of your body on one side and at the back of your body on the other side. The standard Warrior Two pose involves us moving into a bent knee over this front leg with the knee directly over the ankle. The body still remains erect, does not move forward. Arms are out to the side, and we face out over the extended hand over the bent knee. To add a little bit of hand motion in here, we can take that extended right arm, in this case over the right knee, and go ahead and flex it down and then flex it up. So moving back and forth while still keeping that left hand out behind us, just watching that right hand flexing down and flexing up. Again, keeping that right knee above the right ankle. And then from this position, go ahead and point the fingers out directly in both directions. Take your back hand down onto the back leg, flip the front palm up, and go ahead and move into a Sun Warrior or Extended Warrior position. Keep that right arm straight and shoot energy out of those fingers. If you'd like, go ahead and move your hands into wide fingers Then you can move them back into narrow fingers and wide fingers and narrow fingers. Just do that a few times. Continuing to lean back. There's no pressure on this back hand. And make sure your knee is still moving toward the outside of your foot. And if you can, make sure that it's directly above your ankle. Then on a breath out, go ahead and move back into Warrior Two. And on a breath in, extend the right leg and move into triangle pose by moving out across the extended right leg. Moving from the hip crease, so trying to keep the top of your body as straight as possible. The objective is to get it to be at right angles or parallel to the floor and roughly at right angles with where you would be if you were standing up straight. The right hand goes on the leg. We move this right sits bone from the back down under so that you have a nice stable base here. And then left arm goes up to the ceiling. And if you can, turn sideways, and then you can turn up and look at it. From here, we can try another funky hand pose if you'd like. You can go ahead and with that extended upper arm, just take your index finger and your thumb and put them together. Then release that. Then do the same with your middle finger. Then release that. Moving right along to your ring finger, and then release that, and then the pinky, and then release that. If you really want to challenge, you can go backwards, do the same thing, pinky first, then ring finger, then middle finger, then index finger, and then wide hands. Go ahead from here, pressing into both feet. Move yourself back up into a standing position. Go ahead and move yourself back into Warrior Two one last time, getting a good stretch in the back leg. And then go ahead, move yourself back up, twist both of your toes in toward the front, or turn them both in toward the front. And then we'll move to the other side. So we're going to take the left foot out, and the right heel will move back just slightly. Again, the objective is to try and get yourself in a straight line here as much as possible with very open hips, body erect, arms extended out to the side, and keeping the body erect, moving that knee to over the ankle, and trying to keep the hips as open as possible so the knee tracks toward the outside of the foot. Failed to say that on the other side, but I think some of you already know that, okay? And from here again, we can take our left wrist now and go ahead and flex it down, and then flex it up, and do this a number of times. Try to push out of the heel of your hand when you're flexing up. Gives you just a little bit more pressure. And then on the outside of the wrist when you're pointing down. And then from here again, we're going to take the back arm down, the right arm on the left leg, flip the palm up on the front or left arm, and go ahead and lean back into extended or sun warrior pose. Again, from here, you can go ahead and play with your hand if you'd like, moving the fingers in and out. Then go ahead and move yourself back into Warrior Two. Then extend the left leg and move into triangle, folding at the hip crease. Again, trying to keep the top of your torso as straight in the spine as possible as you extend out over the left leg. This arm is going to go straight up in the sky. This one is going to be somewhere down on your leg, or if you can get there, the ultimate position has your hand on the floor. And again, here we can try that funky hand motion by taking our index finger, tip of our index finger, to our thumb, and then releasing, and then taking the middle finger to the thumb, and then releasing. Doing the same with the ring finger, and then releasing, and then finally with the pinky, and then releasing. You can try doing this with your breath. So on a breath out, go ahead and move the pinky back into the thumb, and then in, go ahead and extend. And then on a breath out, go ahead and take the ring finger down into the thumb, and then extend. And then on a breath out, take the middle finger down to the thumb, and then extend. And then do the same with the index finger, the pointer finger, down to the thumb, and then back up to the sky. Take a moment to take one last breath here, and then on an in-breath, go ahead and rotate back up. Move back into Warrior Two for the last time. Then go ahead and straighten that left leg, turn both of the toes in, and go ahead and step back in to the center of your mat. Now we'll move into our Warrior One series. We're going to go ahead and take our legs a little bit more than hips width apart, not quite, actually a lot more than hips width apart, but not quite as far apart as they are for a Warrior Two pose. Arms, again, in a Warrior Two pose, your ankles would be below your wrists. So if you stretch your arms out here, maybe your feet are in just a little bit from that, okay? We're going to be squaring our hips to the short end of the mat. So we go ahead and take our right foot and turn it toward the short end of the mat, and then the left foot is going to move further than it did in the opposite, in the Warrior Two position, so that the angle is a little bit more toward the front end of the mat. So it's not a slight tipping in of the foot, it's more of a pronounced tipping in of the foot. And the idea here is to use that back leg to go ahead and move or crank those hips around so that the left hip is roughly in the same plane toward the short end of the mat that the right hip is in. Then we raise our arms up overhead. Go ahead and bend the knee, the front knee. You don't want to face forward too much. You want to actually have your body reasonably erect, but in doing so, you're going to be tipping down your tailbone a little bit because you don't want to have a crunch in your back, okay? So the objective here is not to have a sore back. But with that bent knee, again, knee does not go past the ankle, it goes right above the ankle, and the arms up overhead. This in and of itself, if you just shoot energy out of your fingers, is an incredibly good pose for arms, shoulders, and hands, as well as, of course, your hips and legs. If you want to make it a little bit more interesting, then you can go ahead and clasp your hands, right finger on top, and then go ahead and turn them inside out over your head. Then go ahead and take your arms behind your back. This time go ahead and put the left finger on top, clasping your arms together, and bend over that front knee into what we call humble warrior. This takes some balance, so be patient with yourself on the way down. The objective is to keep a pretty straight back. And then from here, go ahead and take your arms, if you'd like, up over your head as you allow the front of your head to bow. Then from here, straighten that front leg. If you can place your fingertips down on the ground, that's great. If you can't, don't worry about it. You can go ahead and stack them on your front leg wherever your arms are. Spend another moment trying to make sure that those hips are level. So that means pressing into your back foot. You should feel a really good stretch in your hamstring on this side. From here, if you can, from wherever you are, go ahead and just continue with your chest out forward and your back as straight as possible to fold forward over that front leg, getting an increased hamstring stretch. If, like me, you can put fingertips to floor, go ahead and involve your palms and your hands in this pose by pulling your hip back and pushing forward with your hands. So getting a little bit more stretch out of that right leg. Then from here, you can go ahead and bend that front knee slightly so that you can move back up into a standing position. Turn your feet forward on the mat, and we're going to move to the other side. So take the left foot out toward the short end of the mat, and again, take that right heel back a little bit more than it was when you were in the Warrior Two pose. We're going to extend arms out to the side and up overhead. Crank that hip around. Again, trying to keep the hips as even as possible. Bend that left knee. And we're in Warrior One on the opposite side. Push hard out of that back leg to keep that hip coming around. Shoot energy out of those fingers. Help your arms and your hands to get a good stretch. Then you can go ahead and with left finger on top, clasp your hands and turn them inside out over your head and get that good stretch for your palms, your fingers. Then release the hands, and with the opposite finger on top, so here it would be the right finger on top, clasp your hands again behind your back and extend out with a flat back over that front bent knee. Pushing again out of that right side to keep your hips level. And from here you can let your head bow and arms move up over your head. And on a breath in, go ahead and extend that left leg. Move your arms down if you can. Again, trying to keep your hips as even as possible. And get that great hamstring stretch on the left leg in pyramid pose. Again, you can feel free to put hands on your leg for balance. Hands on the ground. If you have access to blocks or something else to put your hands on, feel free to do that. And if you can, go ahead and pull back with that left hip and push forward with your hands to get a really good hamstring stretch out of that left leg. Then from here again, go ahead and bend that leg slightly. Move to a standing position, feet facing forward, and we can do a what's commonly known as a resting pose. You can go ahead and, if you want, move your feet out a little bit further on the mat. It's a wide-legged forward fold. Again, folding from the hip crease, we just, with the chest out extended and back fully extended in a neutral position, move forward. Hands can move down the legs. Hands can move, if you can reach the floor, to directly below your shoulders. And then if you have the capability to bend further from that hip crease, you can go ahead and release down toward the floor by moving your elbows back and moving your hands back toward the tips of your toes and allowing your body, again with a straight back, chest extended forward, to move down toward the floor. And when you've reached the full extension of your pose, you can let your head bow down toward the floor. Go ahead and move your hands to below your shoulders if they're not there, if you've moved into a more full extension of the pose. And then from here, we'll sweep arms out to the side and go ahead and move ourselves up into a standing position. And then go ahead and heel toe if you want in until you can take both of your feet together. Okay, we're going to move back down to the floor from here. So we're going to do a standard forward fold and get ourselves down onto our knees. So on an in-breath, move hands up, arms overhead, and on an out-breath, either with arms extended in front or to the side, go ahead and move down back into a forward fold. Then go ahead and kneel down onto the ground. We're not going to stay in a kneeling position for very long, but go ahead and tuck your heels right under your gluteus muscles, your backside muscles, your bum muscles, and sit as straight as possible, again, with a little bit of a tilt so that your hips are just below your shoulders and your head is extended up toward the ceiling of the room that you're in. And from here, we're going to do a complicated arm and hand pose. I've saved this one for near the end so that everybody could work up to it. We're going to do eagle arms. So in eagle arms, what we do is we'll start with our, let's start with our left arm out in front of us. Go ahead and take your arm out at shoulder height and turn the palm up. Then do the same with the right. Then take the right and move it under the left, okay, as much as you can. From here, we're going to bend both elbows. Now the backs of your hands should be facing each other, okay? And if you pull in, you might be able to do what I'm doing here, which is to actually get your palms so that they face in toward each other and are pressing against each other. That's ideal. If you can't get there, grab wherever you can, because the objective is to pull your elbows in toward each other and your shoulders apart. Okay, so this is a great stretch for the upper back, while at the same time you're working the hands and the lower arms by pulling and pressing. So again, if the best you can do is reach something, anything, grab onto anything, a thumb, doesn't have to be a palm, forearms, and your elbows are about at shoulder height. Then go ahead and release, and we'll do the same thing for the other side. Go ahead and shake out your arms. We'll put right arm forward, palm up, then left arm forward, palm up. Here we're going to move the right arm over the left, bend elbows. Again, backs of hands are facing each other. Go ahead and have them move in toward each other in whatever way you can, pressing the lower arms against each other, the palms moving so that your upper arms are pressing against each other while your shoulders are pressing away from each other, or pulling more accurately away from each other. Eagle arms, shoulders and elbows at about the same height. And then from here, go ahead and release your arms and hands, shake everything out, move the fingers around, rotate the wrists. And we'll try one last sort of more unusual pose. And for this, we're going to stay in Thunderbolt, sitting on our heels. But I'm going to turn sideways to illustrate what I'm doing with my arms. So we're going to do what some people call robot arms, right? Where you're bent at the elbow and your arms are perpendicular to, or perpendicular to your elbows, but parallel to the floor below you. So what we're going to do here is just with both hands, keeping the wrists as straightforward as possible and the elbows and the lower arms in the same position, move the hands down and move the hands up. So ulnar flexion and then radial flexion. Okay, now I have a break that I have repaired in my right radius, so I can't go up as far with my right hand. Be patient with yourself. You can breathe out while flexing down, and then breathe in while flexing up, or opposite. But go ahead and use your breath. Okay, go ahead and again shake out wrists and fingers and arms. We're going to move to our backs and settle into the end of our practice. So let's start with bridge pose. Give ourselves a little bit of a chest opener. So lie down on your back and go ahead and, if you can, flatten your lower back to the ground. Press up in your feet a little bit to be able to do that. At the same time, take both of your hands and arms, move them down to your sides. And you can move your heels in toward your gluteus muscles as much as you can. But we're only going to do a simple bridge today. So on a breath out, go ahead and make sure that that lower back is right into the mat. And then on your next breath up, push into both feet and extend out of both legs through the knees while pressing down with both hands to help keep yourself up. This is your bridge. If you'd like, you can roll each of your shoulders under, right then left or left then right, and even clasp your hands underneath your body so that you're resting on the outsides of your shoulders. Make sure you're not putting any pressure on your neck, and do not move your neck in this position. Again, pressing into both feet, energy shooting out of your knees. Then on a breath out, release your hands and slowly release your back down to the mat. After taking a cleansing breath, go ahead and take your right leg and straighten it up toward the ceiling. Then take your hands, clasp them behind your right thigh, and pull the leg back towards you. If you have a practice that allows you to grab your toes, you can go ahead and do that. If you'd like to grab behind the calf to move the leg further toward your head, your foot is flexed in this position, please feel free to do that. And if you'd like more of a challenge, you can straighten the opposite leg. Makes it a lot harder with a straight leg to move that right leg further forward towards your face. Then if you straightened your left leg, go ahead and bend that left knee again. Take the right leg down to the floor to meet it. And then let's do the same with the left leg, extending it up toward the ceiling, clasping first behind the thigh to pull the leg a little bit towards you. Again, with your left foot flexed in this position. Then go ahead and, if you can, move the hands up the leg, including by holding your toe, if that's part of your practice. And then again, if you'd like, you can take the right leg and extend it out along the ground. Then go ahead and bend that right knee again. Take the left leg down to meet it. And from here, we'll do just a last set of twists before we rest in Shavasana. So go ahead and first take each of your legs one at a time and bend your knees towards your chest. Pull them in. This is child's pose, upside down. Then from here, go ahead and extend both arms out at shoulder height, palms facing the ceiling. And first start by taking a twist to the right. So you're just going to gently tip both of your legs together toward the right side of your body. It's a little harder to keep the knees up closer to your chest. Try and make sure that if you can, you either have something to rest that lower knee on, maybe a blanket roll from your house or something else that you have around. The left knee can move toward it. You can go ahead and take that right hand and pull it down so that it pulls the two knees together if you'd like. And if it's available to you, you can actually turn your head towards your left arm, the opposite arm. I'm going to do that in a moment. And when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and clench my fist and then extend my hands again like we did in the beginning of the practice. So go ahead and in connection with your breath, in tune with your breath, just go ahead and make a fist and then extend your hand fully with the fingers wide apart. And do that a few times. So I'm going to do that now. And go ahead and take your head and turn it back up toward the ceiling. If you're holding, like me, your left knee in your right hand, go ahead and extend the right hands up, and then using your core muscles, take both of those knees back towards your chest. Then from here, we're going to do the same thing on the other side, tipping both of your knees toward the left side. Again, rest your left knee on something if it doesn't reach the ground. You want it to relax. And go ahead and feel free to use your left hand on the top of your right knee to hold it down. And again, if it's available to you, go ahead and turn and face out toward your outstretched right palm. And again here, we can go ahead and in connection with our breath, make a fist, and then release our hands to wide fingers. And just do that a few times. I like breathing out when I make the fist and then breathing in when I pull those fingers out. Then from here again, turn your head so that it faces the ceiling. Extend that left arm back out on the ground, and using your core muscles, go ahead and move both of those knees back to your chest. Pull them in. Maybe do a little bit of rocking back and forth for your lower back. Feel free to make figure eights if you like, on the base of your spine. And then let's all go into a happy baby together. This involves taking our hands and putting them on the outsides of the foot or the insides of the foot if you'd like, or if you can't reach your feet, go ahead and reach up to your ankles wherever you can reach. Knees extend down towards your armpits. Back is flat on the ground, tailbone pointed down. And just breathe a few breaths in this position. Then go ahead and put your knees together. Hug them in one last time to your chest. And then go ahead and extend both of your legs out into your version of Shavasana. I like to pretend that I'm standing here first and go ahead and tighten everything up. So put myself in Tadasana on the ground, Supta Tadasana. So feet flexed, arms directly straight pointed toward with fingers pointed toward my feet. And then go ahead and allow everything to relax out. You want your shoulders to be relaxed to the ground. You don't want to have any tension in them. You don't want to have any tension in your feet. So allow, or your ankles or your legs. So allow them to move externally, naturally. Okay, at natural open hips. You're not pressing on anything here. And then go ahead and take your version of a total body scan. Start with those feet that we've been standing on and flexing and using in our practice today. And just make sure that your toes, your arches, your instep, that they're all released. Move up to your ankles and ensure that they also have no tension in them. And your shins and the backs of your calves. Don't hold any tension in your knees either, or your quadriceps or your hamstrings. Just take a deep breath and release any tension you feel there. Do the same with your hips. Make sure that you breathe away any muscle tension that you feel or any tendon issues that you're having in the front of your hips or the outsides of your hips. As you breathe, feel your belly rise and fall. Feel your lungs fill with air and then release that same air. Make sure that your shoulders are relaxed. And then work your way down your arms, starting with the upper arms. Moving through the elbow and into the lower arms. And then you've worked your wrists and your hands really hard. Make sure that they're also relaxing. Your fingers should be slightly bent and relaxed. Palms facing up toward the ceiling, arms externally rotated. And then moving back up from your shoulders through your neck. Release any tension that you feel there. Again, breathing in. And on your out breath, feeling that tension release. Do the same with the front of your neck, moving all the way up into your face, starting with your jaw and your chin area. Release any tension that you have there. You may also be holding tension in your temples, your cheeks, your eye region. Take a deep breath and get rid of all of that physical tension. If your eyebrows are furrowed, try to let your forehead relax and release those furrows. Then just lie here on your back for a few minutes breathing. As we did in the beginning of practice, get back in touch with your breath, non-judgmentally. Just go ahead and listen to yourself breathing in and out. In, you're breathing in, and out, you're breathing out. You can and should stay in Shavasana longer than this, but for purposes of this video, I'm going to move us along to removing ourselves from Shavasana and moving back into the active world. So take a moment, take a deep breath in and out. Bring movement back to your fingers and your wrists, your toes and your ankles in whatever way you would like. And once you've done that, take each leg and move it back up into a bent knee position with feet flat on the floor. Then on a breath out, turn to your right side, resting the right side of your head on your outstretched arm. Take a few breaths here. And then push up with your left arm and then your right arm and join me in, again, a simple seated position. From here, we'll take our hands and extend them out to each side. Go ahead and spread those fingers wide again. And on a breath in, let's take our arms up overhead, palms together to touch. Move our hands down to heart center. Bow our heads. And thank our bodies and each other for this practice. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.